Hello, good evening. I hope you guys had a really good day today. Now that we are officially halfway through the week with it being Wednesday. So that's I suppose, a good thing, right? So I think overall, kind of like I mentioned in the go live I did earlier when I was doing my tarot show and tell, it was a good day. I think with any new job, you got to do anymore a lot of online modules. So I was busy for 8 hours doing online modules. I'll work the floor a bit tomorrow with someone, and then on Friday, even more modules. Like it's crazy. And I see, I've always been more of a hands-on visual learner. So I get that it's the way it has been. Modules are the thing. They're just not my favorite thing to do is all. But I get the accessibility and why they're there, So we're going to continue our journey tonight through the Suit of Swords. And the card that we'll be talking about tonight has a bit of an emotional context to it too. Because like last night, and I'll show that briefly, we talked about the Eight of Swords. And, if you didn't see the tarot teaching moment, I download all these onto YouTube. So feel free to check out Mountain Crow Tarot on YouTube to see all of the tarot teaching moments that our group has done. And they're always conveniently categorized by various playlists based on the suit and so forth. That way it's just easy to find. So I think that's something. So basically with that card, we had somebody that created their own prison, very inwardly turned, defeated, not feeling confident. And so we're going from the energy of that card to tonight we're discussing the Nine of Swords. So I'm going to light my incense and we're going to get right into it. It'll also give people a moment to hop on. Okay, cool. I love cinnamon incense. I think it's one of my favorites. So I'll set that right there. So what we have here is the Roman numeral for 9. And I want you to look at this card. Does it make you comfortable or not comfortable? What is the overall tone of the card? If you had to have one word to describe it, how would you describe this card? Look at the central figure, their body language. Are they looking at us or away from us? And what are they doing? Look at what's around them. Look at the predominant color usage, because I think that we generally go over that really thoroughly in all the go lives. Everything has an intent to it, a purpose. Check out the blanket. What's on the blanket, the color usage there. So with this card, the overall tone is a very dark one. Because again, with the Suit of Swords, this is not an easy thing to go through. Like it's been frequently referenced in these go lives for this suit. It's a double-edged sword. So there's a lot of pain, discomfort, also references growing pains as we learn the truth about things. So this is oftentimes, you may hear people reference it as the 3 a.m. card. We've all at one point in our lives or another been so inside our heads about work, relationships, or our finances where we cannot sleep. This is often somebody who tosses and turns, lays in bed for hours without being able to go to sleep, awaken, say, around 3 a.m., and their mind is racing and they cannot go back to sleep. The problem is the way that the human mind is constructed. And I'm briefly touching base on training I had some time ago through Crucial Conversations, which is a book you can also purchase, where it teaches about the art of communication. One of the things that it delved into was how, as human beings, we have a certain amount of info, but we may have gaps in that info to where we do not have the whole story. So the way that the human mind works is, again, our brains run everything 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. It's running the show. So the way it works is if it's missing information, then there's a narrative that is injected, like placed within what we do know, which may not even be true. It could be totally fabricated. So this could be very much, this individual could be like an overthinker, very much in their head, worried about things that aren't even real problems, but they've made them real problems in their head by exhaustively going into the what ifs, even in the past, things that they cannot change. Their mind, it's like it turns on itself and it torments its owner, which would be me and you, okay? Exhaustively going over what you could have said, could have done, or even the current state of affairs with the various things we generally go over, which would be relationships, career, and finances. And I think my husband pointed it out some time ago to me because I'm an overthinker. I wish I wasn't, but I can be. And I can be a worrier and a ruminator. He told me some time ago in our marriage, he's like, why worry about things if you have no control over them? And that's really before I really got in touch with my spirituality, like I have over the past 2 to 3 years. And it's like, I thought that was really profound. And so it's really important to be very self-aware with our thinking processes, and to know everything that we think does not make it a truth. So this is an individual where the background is black. Okay, so this would be like somebody that's in bed. Okay, so they've got the lights off. But when we think about black and how it's all around our central character, think for a moment about what that feels like, that color black, and then somebody being surrounded by that. So there is a lot of, it's almost claustrophobically so, being very much surrounded in blackness, uncertainty, not knowing, not having illumination, knowledge, and clarity. So it's very much the opposite connotation of, say, when we talk about the sun and that beautiful yellow color, how we have the illumination of our paths and warmth and knowledge and clarity, right? Black is the absence of color, so we don't have any of that. Now, by mastering the thought processes, being very self-aware, and we'll get into that here briefly about how to maybe rise above this. These swords are stacked upon each other very much like a ladder. So this person does not have to stay here. They can use these swords like the rings of a ladder. I think I'm pronouncing that correctly. Rings or rungs, whatever. They can use it like a ladder to leave this place which they don't want to be at. They don't want to be not getting sleep and waking up in the middle of the night worrying, and then take themselves and remove themselves from this uncertainty, discomfort, unknown. We're talking about severe anxiety, possibly a panic attack, depression. So this is also a card that does touch upon mental disorders. So I think that's important to note. Now notice how the side of the bed, we have a figure. So we've got two people. It appears that one has struck another person down. So that's very symbolic of feeling defeated. this entity, this person may represent the very thing keeping them up that they feel very vulnerable about, very afraid and threatened by. And this is how our main character would feel. The bed is very barren, so it's not like we're seeing a lot of nice pillows and all that good stuff. The one thing that does stand out would be the main character's blanket. So we're seeing patterns, okay? So we have signs from the zodiac that are in blue, okay? So when we think of blue, we think of truth, tranquility, and calm. And this, it touches upon the cosmos, the divine, knowing that there's a bigger plan out there than what me and you may be aware of from a fatalistic viewpoint. And then we have that beautiful color of yellow with red roses. So when I was doing my research about the roses, they say that it's a nod. This is per Rachel Pollack in Tarot Wisdom, that it's a nod toward Aphrodite. I almost said her name incorrectly, and I don't know why. But she's known as the goddess of love. So it's showing that this figure, in all of their strife, are blanketed. They are, I mean, they feel alone. They are alone at that point in time in this room. But it shows that divine presence that is aware of them, and there's a comfort to be had. When I was researching other additional meanings for those red roses that we're seeing on the blanket, there's a song I came across too, and I want to read it off correctly. So from a Christian viewpoint, because, you know, if I see various religions come up, I think it's a beautiful thing to mention all of them, and there's value in all of it. But it's a song called God is in the Roses, and it's a YouTube video, and it came up when I was Googling red roses, or it was like roses and deity, and it came up, and the song went, God is in the roses and the thorns. So the red roses stand for the blood of Christ. The thorns stand for the crown of thorns that he wore when he was crucified on the cross. And the song goes into, say, resurrection and rebirth. So I thought that was a really pretty thing to bring up with these red roses. And again, I love how it's got that yellow background. And that it's a nice thick blanket on what would otherwise be a very bare bones, minimalistic bed, other than, of course, that is something to be alluded to, but then the blanket really draws you in with all those symbols. And yeah, they very much look defeated. They've got their face in their hands. They're not really able to look outward, feeling very overwhelmed internally, not having that clarity. And like we had touched upon, from being an overthinker, they could be creating problems that aren't even there. And I see Honor's on here. Hi, Honor. Good evening. So with love, we're looking at, this could be somebody who's ruminating about the past, about something they wish they wouldn't have said or done. But none of us have power over the past. But it's very much something they feel guilt over, shame, enough to where it's causing them that emotional turmoil to where it's disturbing their inner peace. With a single person, this could be somebody who feels very lonesome and they did not have a good relationship previously and they have not healed from that. So they cannot move forward, whether it be a romantic or even just a platonic friendship, without healing, to be able to move forward. With career, this is somebody who does not feel like work is a good place. They may not feel safe and supported. They may worry about bad things happening to them there, especially if it's not a great work environment, to where they wake up at night and they literally dread going in. And for the sake of transparency, in my distant past, I have had a job where I got nauseous as I was driving into it. And I've had it to where I would wake up and my mind would be racing because I didn't think it was a good environment to work in at all. I dreaded going there. So I know this feeling well, where you lay in hours and you don't get to sleep because your mind is very much awake and racing, right? And then with like finances, so let's say finances aren't the best, then it keeps them up at night, even though nothing can be done at night. Not even saying formulating a plan, like we briefly, or not briefly, but frequently touch upon, when, say, if we journal, because, I'm an advocate for that, and someone makes a loose outline about what they have control over in their life as far as like a game plan of how they can address it. Because even though, yes, I do believe in fate to a certain degree, I do believe that we have free will, very much so, and control over our lives. We're not going to come up with a profound solution to these dilemmas in the middle of the night when we're sleep deprived and we have that emotional aspect in play. And that's the thing. It's tricky with swords being all about the element of air, logic, communication. And I loved how it was worded. It was on Labyrinthos that I read this. They had touched upon how this suit, again, is based in logic, and it's the destructive end of the mind turning on itself. I really liked how they worded that. And then I wrote after that, it's tormenting its owner. So it's like the mind turning on itself, going to a really bad place and tormenting the person that resides in. Like, I really like how they worded that. And that is called the 3 a.m. card by Liz Dean in one of the other books I reference. I really like that. So like some common descriptors to call this, I'll read them off, would be like anxiety, unhappiness. It's a habit of overthinking, of worrying about even inconsequential things. So being that this is a minor arcana card, it's not a major, it's a minor. So these are more so the trivial type things, for maybe another way of using the words, a bump in the road. Even though at that time it doesn't feel that way. It becomes this bigger thing in our minds that's very overwhelming. And they, especially in my reading, they pointed this out too, and it makes sense. So say if you get this card for yourself or somebody you're reading for, and you also get the 10 of Wands, which you remember that we went through the suit of Wands as a group. If you get the 10 of Wands with this card, that means that they're carrying a really heavy burden, because the 10 of Wands is the burden card. We're looking at mental health issues. So this is anxiety, panic attacks, and depression. And with those things, I'm certainly a believer in science. Also, I'm a believer in spirituality, obviously. That's just how I'm attuned. But I very much believe in medicine and people seeking professional help, that the science of mental health has evolved quite a bit, and there's help to be had. There's no shame at all in getting counseling or psychiatric help, because I'm not normal. More than likely, you're not either. I haven't met a normal person except out of a textbook for nursing school. I've yet to encounter this person. I mean, yeah, some people try to maybe play off like they are normal, but most of the people that are in my social circles don't try. And that's why I love them dearly. So we're looking at insomnia, nightmares, sorrow, grief, fear, negativity, despair, isolation, plagued by questions, like an unending narrative of questions, haunted. I really like that descriptor. This is especially true of somebody who's had past trauma, who has suffered a past abuse of some sort, that no, they're not healed from it yet, and they may have bad dreams. And I just now thought of the veterans I took care of at the VA when I worked at the VA for 4 years. Many of them have PTSD, which is post-traumatic stress disorder from serving, especially in combat. They still have bad dreams about wartime, and they'll wake up and be you wouldn't want to be close to them. They're in that defending themselves mode. So when I did night shift, I would say their name. If they wouldn't wake up, try their name again. I might tap the foot, but you would never go up to somebody's face and try to wake them up in the middle of the night. That's a good way to get hit or attacked, especially by people who are trained in combat and warfare. That's not a good idea for that population. But the sad thing about just people in general, but especially our veterans, they have high suicide rates. There's a lot of mental health issues. They do self-medicate. So there's like a lot of alcohol and drug abuse. So like when I first started caring for that population, I would see cocaine abuse come up quite frequently in their histories along with alcoholism. And so that's why it's important, whether or not it's a veteran or some other human being, if they're suffering from addiction, you get them help. It's a mental and a physical thing that torments them. And you just that lonely feeling of feeling alone, especially in the mind, with how the mind controls everything. I wouldn't wish that on anybody. That's horrible. So let's see here. With love, so we were talking about the relationships not being on a really good foundation. So we're looking at maybe remorse for things that were said or done, insecurities about the relationship, not trusting or suspicious of, say, your partner or your friend, regrets from past. With career, anxiety, paranoia, stress, there's no coping mechanisms with these. So that's why it's important to try to, do different things to see what works for you, between meditation, journaling, reflecting. Who is your support system? Who do you trust and you know that they care about you and that they'll listen and get you help? That's who you lean upon. I think it's so hard for us to accept help, and that's any of us. It's easier to want to give it than accept it. But it's very necessary to ask for help sometimes, because we all need other people, and unless we get that help, we can't heal and move forward. And then we keep up with this, and this is not a sustainable thing. With finances, like I was talking earlier on, they're just worried. It keeps them up at night wondering how they're going to keep their home, pay the bills, put food on the table. Especially what came to my mind just now was how many people during the pandemic, from saying having their children at home, having to school them full time, with children being quarantined from, exposures for like 10 days back then. They're trying to figure out, how in the world am I going to pay my bills, put food on my table for my family? And then you worry about the kid, because school is supposed to be that safe space with structure and support. And our children got robbed of that from this pandemic that took over everything. I'm so glad that we're coming out of that on the other side of things. So I had mentioned how with the quilt, with the roses, it could stand for Aphrodite. It could also stand for the Christian God, with those red roses standing for the blood of Christ. And with roses, we have thorns. It stands for the crown of thorns. And the song by Rosanne Cash called God is in the Roses, which I played it. I did think it was really pretty. I liked it. And then we have the signs from the zodiac, which just shows that divine influence, that's a blanket. So whatever shape or form your blanket takes, I would encourage you to embrace that. So no matter what your faith or your religion is, prayer is a powerful thing. So for me, prayer looks very much like cleaning and burning candles. Like, I think you guys have picked that up if you've hung out in here, especially when I very first started the group. I was teaching about candle colors and uses. My connection to my God and my spirituality is my own, and it's personal to me. I think that they all, though, they do take time to, like, I'm thinking of Muslim faiths where they have this really pretty carpet that they spread on the floor and they'll pray to Allah, to their God, or to say the Christian God. No matter what name it is, we're talking about source. There are certain things that if you have no control over it, you have to turn that over and get that burden, that weight off your heart, and lean into your faith and know that your faith is certainly there. In addition to looking into the other resources that we've talked about. And again, these swords are like a ladder. So we don't want to stay in this state. So what are we going to do, taking this ring by ring or rung by rung to take us from this place out of it to go upward, which when I think of upward, I think of divine influence too. You know, not being so tangled up with the murk of earthly type stuff, but maybe looking beyond us into our faith. And then Rachel Pollack mentioned, with this being the number 9, you think in 9 months of pregnancy. So what is being born in this card from the strife of this whole suit would be grief. Our central character so far on this journey has experienced a lot of loss and a lot of pain and discomfort. So we're about to wrap the suit up with the 10 of Swords tomorrow. So at this point in time, this is someone that is very scarred and needs some healing, you know. And like she said, it's a culmination of the grief. So it's progressively built up to where we're talking about the severe mental disorders, anxiety, panic attacks, depression, severe anxiety, you know. And then we had mentioned the side of the bed with the carvings of the person defeated by another, which is very symbolic of this individual feeling defeated by whatever this represents. It doesn't have to be a human, but it can be. So with reversals, and this further illuminates how reversals are not all bad in tarot. So we're totally dismissing that myth. So, you know, when we turn into, say, a reversal, if you read them, which you don't have to if it doesn't resonate with you, we're talking about, generally speaking, the opposite energy of the card. This would be this energy, this figure finding their way out. So they're getting help. They're leaning into their support systems. They're getting medical help, counseling, whatever path. And the only way they're going to know that is if they're brave enough to get out of that bed. I would say it'd be nice for them to take their blanket with them because it's such a beautiful, meaningful thing. But to leave this bare bed otherwise behind, right? Maybe get rid of that, look at getting a different bed. I was tempted. I had to, guys. So with reversals, we're coming out of this negative energy that we have when it's upright. So we're looking at getting help. It's the beginnings of recovery and healing. It's learning to cope, obtaining clarity. Okay, remembering that when we awaken in the middle of the night and we're ruminating on things, we're creating things that may not even exist. Again, the mind is tricky like that. With love, it's having those conversations with our romantic partners or our friends, and healing, right? With career, it may be that job is not a good job for you. If it's that bad of an environment where it's got someone in this state, they may need to switch careers or go to a different organization. That won't cost them their inner peace like that. Or it could also be internally to where actually the work environment's okay, but we're having to change our attitude toward it and the way we see it because our perception determines our reality. You know, so it's changes in your own attitudes, perspectives, and behaviors, being very self-aware. And with finances, It would be obtaining a realistic view of what your finances are for me or you and determining how best to address them. And again, it won't be at 3 a.m. or laying in bed for hours. It may be getting an accountant or getting like somebody who's really good with numbers and money to have them help you look at a game plan. So I think those are some major takeaways with this. And I think, I don't know, I think that's the gist of what I wanted to cover with this. And so now I'll move into the other cards for comparison here. And of course, look out for the common symbols that carry over and so forth. So here we have our central figure, and it's like it's like a drowning almost. It's like she's immersed, like there's water. But look at these dark hands. So it shows that she's very much, her eyes are closed. She's turned inward. And just look at her, where her hands are, you know. Like she's trying to grasp for that logic, just something to help kind of slow her mind so she could have some inner peace and rest. But it would be like that shadow work that we alluded to last week, past traumas, things that are unhealed, like we were just talking about tonight, that are really just literally hovering over her and just coming at her. Like, to me, this is a very uneasy, not comfortable card. How she's surrounded in that dark, you know, like that blackness that carries over. Like, it's not a comfortable card. That would be scary. Then we have this one where we have a lady, and just like the Rider-Waite-Smith, okay, the figure's looking down, covering the face. We have, it looks like some cloud cover, a bit of fog. So we do not have visibility. So we've got some confusion here. And when we're looking at whether it be crows or ravens that are flying above her, we see one that is not even real. It's like a white coloration. And I think that's really significant to show that not all of the things we ruminate on are real, and how that mind can turn on itself and really torture its owner, which would be me and you, unfortunately. And I like that there's some divine influence there. So we see that little touch of white and yellow, a little bit of blue for calmness and tranquility. If only this person can, again, get help if need be, which a lot of us do need help, to find their way out of this cloud cover, they can rise above all this and learn ways to cope and get rid of that chaos and madness that literally torments them, you know? And I like that there's these little stars in the distance. I think in the major arcana, the star card, where when we were on our fool's journey, the fool at that point is exhausted. And it was a time of rest and rejuvenation and looking up at that beautiful star in the sky and feeling hope. So there's hope to be had, you know. With this one, we see our little crow friend here. And we see the swords lined up just like they are with the Rider-Waite-Smith. And this shows all of the various things it's thinking about feeling trapped, about conflict. We have cloud cover, so we do not have complete visibility in addition to that crescent moon. So we don't even have a full moon. So we don't have very much light, you know, and just the darkness that is just, that little guy is immersed under all that, you know. And like we were talking about with the Rider-Waite-Smith, seeing this as a ladder, getting help, figuring out how to rise above all this to get out of that energy, you know. And then the last one would be from the Hush Tarot. She looks sad. You know, her eyes are closed. She's frowning, doesn't look happy. Her body language is very closed off and not open, so maybe feeling vulnerable, possibly in pain with that frown. And then her hair, it looks like flowers that are dying, they're wilting. To me, I don't know. Like, I don't get the same vibes. I can see the sadness in this card just by looking at it, but it doesn't, it does a disservice. Like, you really don't get everything like you would with the Rider-Waite-Smith. So, but again, the art in the deck is beautiful. It really is. I've enjoyed using it as an example. Like, if people find a deck like this that they love, it's cool. Just get you a little Rider-Waite-Smith deck to go right alongside it as you do your readings, or a book, so that after you intuitively look at a card, you can look it up, you know, and learn the foundational meanings as you go along. And, you know, just to dismiss a myth, when I very first started reading tarot, I thought I needed to learn all the meanings to all 78 cards, because all of us want to do spreads and all this stuff. I wish somebody would have told me not to sweat all that. I wish I had somebody to just tell me, just get a deck, draw a card, intuitively look at it, and then look it up. Don't sweat learning it all, you know. Because that's the thing, we want to learn everything as fast as we can. It's something. I've learned to slow down and be okay with not knowing everything. I embrace it. I know I don't, and it's okay. But again, it's cool when those symbols carry over. It really is. There's some of my favorite decks are the ones where that symbolism carries over, you know. So I think that sums us up for tonight for this. So, of course, as always, if you have any questions, leave them in the comments or in our group. Or if you're not really comfortable doing that, just shoot me a message. You're on Facebook or what have you. That'd probably be the easiest way to do it. Just shoot me a message. And then tomorrow we will do the Ten of Swords. So we will wrap up the swords, and then we'll looking at the court cards for not suits. You tell them tucker it out for the swords. You have to bear with me, guys. I've been doing like so many modules on the computer, and then those HR meetings for my new job. It's just like, I'm fine and all that good stuff. I think my brain has all this stuff swirling around in it right now, to where sometimes the way I'm wording things, I'm catching on like, wait, why am I pronunciating that or saying it that way? I don't know if I'm making sense, but I'm really okay though. So I think we'll do that. And of course, I'll do our card of the day tomorrow. And I think that's the gist of it. So, Honor, I see you're still here with me. You know I appreciate you endlessly. Like, you're one of the biggest blessings to come from this group. I really do enjoy interacting with you. You're really cool. And I appreciate all your contributions to the book club, too. I really do. I like your insights about the Empress. You know, I love to generally write a lot in response, but so far, if I'm at work, I have to kind of keep it short. It just depends on where I can carve out time to get on my social media, you know. I know you can relate to that. But I think that's the gist of it. So I will end it. I'm always bad. It's so hard for me to say goodbye sometimes because I love to chat. So I hope you all sleep well tonight. Bye.